Welcome back, everyone, to the Bonded Podcast. I'm excited to be sitting with Christie Caggiani. She's a registered dietitian, intuitive eating coach, and happens to be one of my business partners who I work really side by side. In fact, sometimes at work, clients will come to me after they see Christie, and we'll be talking and sharing, and I'll share something with them, and they'll say, "Christie just told me that." And so we almost share this pod brain. We are so connected, and I'm excited to share her really with the world. She knows I'm like probably one of her biggest fans. I feel really blessed to work with Christie, and really want everyone to be able to share in so much of her wisdom and just the way that she brings things to life. Lizzie, I know, has also worked closely with Christie as well. You share in my enthusiasm, correct?
Yes, definitely. Every time we have a conversation, I always learn more. And I've studied nutrition and intuitive eating, but I'm always love learning more and hear the deeper perspectives that Christie has to share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
I mean, I love sharing personal stories about Christie, and even Lizzie, if we go back, I mean, you've been influenced by Christie really since your very early tweens. You were doing cooking with her and amazing kind of exposures to her wisdom.
We go way
I
back.
know.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great to be here. You guys, you make me blush, but thank you.
No, it's really
Privilege.
this is really from the heart, because I see sometimes these things are, we don't recognize the influence of other women and in our life, and how, we're on the Bonded Podcast, and how, and I've always recognized and wanted my girls to be influenced by other women, and to have that kind of nurturing and even modeling of things. And I feel like you've been such an influential part of their growing up, but their coming of age, their becoming women, and how they not only feed themselves but feed others. So I'm excited to really talk about so many of the things that we've been talking about recently. And today we're going to focus a little bit on decoding our cravings, and really looking, perhaps exploring a little bit about what that means, first of all, right? So when we hear, okay, and I watch you do this with people, and I'm amazed. So I'm just going to let you have at it and share with our listeners what that means.
Okay. Well, I think it probably helps to start with, what's our reaction to the word cravings? How do we respond when we hear the word cravings? And in so many ways, we've been taught to actually think of it as a negative thing, or unpleasant, or something is wrong. And it's particularly when it comes to food. So it's so interesting. If I were to say, oh, I'm really craving sleep, that doesn't seem judgmental, right? But if we say, oh, I'm really craving chocolate, somehow this message of, oh, I shouldn't be, or something's wrong, or what's wrong with me, or what did I do, or all of those things. So if we can start to look at that first and foremost, like how have we assigned value and judgment to the word cravings, and then take a step back and unhook from that and go, wait a minute, craving is just a signal. It's just a message. It's telling us something. And that is so amazing, because it means we're not going blindly through our day. It means we actually have information. And the second we start to judge that, we lose all value. We lose all guidance that it can give us. So really that, if we can just look at, hey, a craving is telling us something, then we can pause, and there's a lot of things it can tell us. And sometimes it's telling us multiple things. So, so that's where I would start when we're kind of talking about that. And then, in general, when it comes to decoding cravings with food, we want to look at, is it biological, physiological? Is it emotional? Is it, situational? And is it all of it? It could actually be all of it. And if that's the case, where do we start? How do we figure it out? So.
Love that. Just thank you for starting out with just recognizing that having a craving is not a bad thing, that it's actually just a signal, a message. And for us to, how do we go about then? If we stop right there and say it's bad, then we resist it or we, in resisting it, we create more of that loop of it's bad and shameful. And I see with my clients when they do that, one of two things happen. They often then, whatever that is, it comes out either sideways, whether it's emotional or some other behavioral thing, or in fact, they say, F it, and they go at it with a vengeance, because it's forbidden or something like that. And so that idea of beginning to first just start with recognizing it as a signal, de-shaming it, removing judgment, and being curious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to how we like to approach emotions too, in the same way of like emotions are signals. And so this is another way that the body has wisdom and is sharing a signal to us. And Christie, you're amazing at helping us recognize and learn what our body is trying to tell us. So that's why I'm really excited for you to share more about what it looks like to decode our cravings.
So, yeah. And I think that in my experience, and, obviously this is my training and all of it, that is kind of where we start, is sort of looking at what is the body, what physiological and biological signals might be happening. And there are many, and there are many that, physiologically are almost so intertwined, it's hard to tease them apart. So, like thirst and sleep and hunger are all regulated next to each other on the hypothalamus. So if one is off, the other's going to be off. But wait, which one is it? And so it can be really tricky. So let's say someone is craving something really sweet. They're craving sugar. If they haven't slept well for the last few nights, they're exhausted. And there is literally a physiological message coming through that's saying, you're tired, you're tired, you're tired, you're tired. And it's saying, hey, you need something to wake you. You need energy. You need to not be tired. And it's so wise. That's the other thing to really remind ourselves of, is our bodies are really, really wise. They're saying a lot of things. It's whether we slow down enough to pay attention. But our body is so wise. It's saying, hey, we need to feel better. We need to not feel tired. And it knows that having something sweet will give us energy. And in some cases, that's actually really effective. It kicks in, gives us that short-term little boost we need, but it won't replace sleep. It won't take the place of the fact that I really need a good night's sleep. And, and if we're not getting a good night's sleep, we have a really hard time interpreting our physical signals during the day and knowing, even knowing what we're hungry for, because our body is just saying, I need something quick. I need quick energy to keep going. So that's just one example of the physiological aspect of things.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that through my training in mindfulness and being even more aware of my body. I can feel that interconnection, and I can begin, like I'll typically, if I'm out of sorts, I'll go right to, all of the sleeping, the eating, and exercise, and look at kind of what's out of whack. Okay. and really try to hone in on all three of those. And just first getting curious, like what's going on? What am I missing? Type of thing. And how can I get that replaced? So I love that, recognizing that urges and cravings for food can also be signals of needing something else.
Yeah. Including hydration. So that's another one. I am really thirsty. I do water. And then also noticing, when did I last eat? If we're really, really busy, we're not paying attention. We miss the signal of hunger, and now it's 6 hours later and we're craving something quick. We're not craving salad at that moment. We're craving something that has, it gives us something quickly. And, literally being able to say, when did I last feed myself? Because that is a big thing right now on this, again, whole other topic, but boy, dieting has taken on a whole new level recently. And so the amount of restriction that is just normalized and reinforced is literally setting us up for having, cravings and then rebound eating. And, we really do need fuel every 3 to 4-ish hours throughout the day on a consistent basis. And when we don't get that, our body starts to talk louder.
Yeah, I also think like it's not even just when was the last time I ate. It's like, what might I have been missing from that meal too? Right. So you might have eaten something, but because it wasn't complete, that actually now you're craving later on in the day. And I've really tuned into that myself. I'm a regular eater, but I am so aware if for any reason I missed something earlier in the day, at nighttime, and I'm not a night eater, I cannot believe it's like so cool for me.
Fascinating.
To be like, wow, I'm eating. And even my family will be like, what are you doing, Mom? Like, it's so unusual because I am really consistent. And I'm like, wow, this is it. I really did miss maybe getting enough carbs early on in my day. Okay, I was rushing and grabbed a smoothie and I'm like, I can see it. And I really think that's cool for people. I know you say it, but when you actually realize it, and this is, I know you teach part of intuitive eating is really noticing and paying attention, knowing your body. And so this whole idea of decoding cravings and making a connection, right? So we start really with physiological, right? You're saying, hey, first question, what's going on? Have I been missing something?
Yeah. Am I missing something? And like you said, carbs, right? So a lot of times if we're missing carbs, we'll crave carbs. But guess what? If we're missing fat, we might crave carbs. If we're missing enough protein, we're going to crave carbs. And that doesn't mean carbs are bad. And it doesn't mean our wiring is off. It just means that we're, in so many ways, our body's like, something's off. I need to fix it quick. And it knows carbs actually help fix it quick. And which is also so cool. So that's actually the nutrient aspect of it, of the physiological piece is like, it's telling you something, but it might be telling you different things on different days, even if it is coming out the same way. You're craving a similar type food, but it might be for different reasons, which is also interesting.
Which is really interesting, right? Even the cyclical pattern of something like that, right? Of the fact that you might be craving something for the quick fix because your body needs something and it knows it can feel instant kind of feeling better.
Yes.
Right? And that may not be what it actually needs. And so you can get kind of looping into that, almost that cycle. So I see that. That's so, thank you. Another little nugget Christie just delivered.
Yeah, and then it also could be something, sorry.
You're good.
It also could be something not even quite as immediate, right? Think of women when they're getting their period, or they're just the first couple days their period kicks in. For me, I used to crave a burger, like a real big, yummy burger on day 1 or 2 of my period.
Mhm.
And the days leading up to my period, I just wanted more carbs. But
Mhm.
that's an example of a specific nutrient. I needed more iron, and protein is a little more, nourishing also in those first couple days of our period. So it again, that wasn't there wasn't something wrong with me, that my body's needs just changed at that point in the month. And that's so also another beautiful way of nutrient, signals.
Yeah, and really like allowing there to be shifts and change. And I think it can be really easy, or from a male's perspective, to kind of do the meal prepping where it's like, the same kind of meals, or like, this is what I eat every week. And not allow for that flexibility and shifts and changes. And I'm bad or wrong if I go off my meal plan. But what you're really speaking to is how, yeah, especially in women's bodies, we have these different cycles. Or even if you are a man, you might go through different cycles of activity level or career stuff that's going on, and your brain's working extra harder, all these different other things. So to, yes, I love meal prepping. And how can we also create room and leave room for shifts and changes based on what we do need that day?
Yeah, and even really recognizing, I think that that's something I still don't know that I am really attuned to, is that nutritional piece, is that real like sense um of knowing, when I'm craving a particular thing, what that might indicate, and how I can sort of reflect on what have I been eating, and am I really missing something? Is there something I need? So is that part of what you even teach in kind of intuit? Okay.
Absolutely. And I think that in general, when we neutralize food morally, like food is just food, it's all different. It's not morally good or bad. This isn't better, even though it may have it's a different nutritional profile. Then it becomes, we've kind of stripped away all the judgment. Then we can be a little bit more tuned in to when our body is asking for something. But, I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit, because I would guess there are times that you are attuned to that. You don't even know. Like if you think about a time you went on vacation and you came home and you're like, I'm craving vegetables. Have you ever done that?
Oh, yes.
That's a great example. And it wasn't like you were trying to deprive yourself of vegetables on vacation. And there might even be some other things in your day-to-day life that you were having here that you didn't have access to on vacation. And your body actually said, I really, really want some vegetables. And, when food is neutralized, if someone grew up being forced to eat vegetables, it is very difficult to go, oh, I'm really in the mood for vegetables right now. They have to do a lot of healing and really recognizing that vegetables are just there whenever, they're not a should. They are a could. I can try them and I can approach them from a different standpoint than I used to. I get to choose how I have these vegetables. And when we can really unhook that old relationship, neutralize it, and then get curious from a different angle, then we actually can learn how we want vegetables. And our body will it does tell us. It can be really subtle, but it does speak.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Thanks for the correction.
On something you probably
Yeah.
experienced, you didn't even know it.
So I know we kind of hit on definitely the physiological and the nutritional. So how about emotional? How do we, after we've sort of figured out what I'm missing or what I might need nutritionally or physiologically, how are you helping people to be able to decode when in fact the cravings are coming more from an emotional place?
So now this can be really general. So an overarching theme, it doesn't mean it's specific in every scenario, but in general, if we're physiologically hungry or craving something and we eat, we will feel better. It starts to meet the need. We start to settle in and be like, okay, God, that hit the spot. If it's emotional, it's almost like an itch that we can't quite scratch all the way. It's like it isn't really getting better. We feel like we need more of the same thing. Or we're, dancing around it, or and sometimes with an emotional craving, it could be a specific food that is we're really locked into. I have to have that. That can sometimes be physiological too, but if there's a pattern we see over and over, and that's again where the curiosity comes in. If we're noticing patterns, wow, I notice after that meeting every single week, I just want to go eat pretzels and I want to chew really crunchy foods.
Mhm.
That might be giving you some insight into your emotions. And so even the textures or the temperatures of food can give you some little clues. Typically, really crunchy or very chewy foods could be more intense, unpleasant emotions. Sometimes softer, smoother foods could actually be more soothing, comforting. Another place to notice is where in your body do you want the food? Do you want it in your mouth where you're chewing really hard? Do you want it in your heart, in your chest? So that's where it starts to get really cool. Like, oh, wait, I am noticing okay, I'm going to use myself an example. Last night, I was very nourished. I was actually kind of, sitting, just trying to decompress from the day, and kept noticing I want ice cream. Really want ice cream. And even was preparing for this today. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to know what to say, and all the judgments and all the and I'm like, okay, and I want ice cream. Okay. So it was actually really cool. I'm like, oh, I think I could use this example tomorrow. And so, I got really clear that what I really need, I needed comfort. I knew it'd been a long day. It's been a long week. I needed comfort. And you know what? Ice cream actually was helpful. I gave myself permission to have some ice cream. I didn't need to, zone out and, judge myself and, eat in a way that was disconnected. I actually leaned in and I'm like, all right, what will help me pay attention to this ice cream? Can I notice if it feels better when I do it? And you know what? It didn't take a lot. And then I knew I needed to cuddle with my dog. And, so it's an example of where even food for cravings that are emotional and we respond with food, that can be a tool. That is a tool. What we don't want is for it to be the only tool. And so when we pay attention, we can notice, okay, that did it. That helped a little. There's still more there. And what else could help me? What are my other tools? So as you're, all the work that you guys do is really expanding that toolbox. How can they deal with the emotions in other effective ways? So we have options. And, even if, the skills you guys teach your clients, there isn't one skill that works all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and even you combined different skills too. So there's like multi-layered approach. And I really think the mindfulness is a whole nother important aspect that you named and brought in, is that you gave yourself some ice cream, but you really brought your full attention to it and allowed yourself and really like enjoyed that experience, rather than that checking out, because then we actually miss the comfort that was there and that was possible by like thinking, oh, this is wrong, so I need to like actually check out while I eat this, and then I probably want more because I didn't actually receive that comfort, and continues. Yeah.
Yes, that's a huge part. Definitely. I'm a big fan of combining and almost layering tools. So what I see you did, Christie, was that ability to really recognize how ice cream really is a yummy, soothing kind of, even just the coolness of it and the texture and the taste. And you were even aware of, this is what I need. Soothing. It's not ice cream that I need. Ice cream is, self-soothing with food is actually soothing. And I'm gonna allow some of it, but I'm also gonna allow other things, and I'm gonna embrace and layer and do that. So I think the mindfulness, the using multiple tools, and again, this non-judgment. It's not bad to actually use food to soothe us. It's about how we do it, and with mindfulness, and really developing a different kind of relationship again with that. I love that, Christie. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your personal example. I'm also wondering, on kind of, the emotional layer, because we are the bonded podcast, right? So we're always looking at that attachment lens and looking, for me, one of the things, I do a lot of early childhood trauma and attachment work. And sometimes clients come to me for all kinds of reasons, and they don't know that there was something necessarily missing. And this is hard for people who say, well, I had a great childhood. It was like everything was great. I had everything anyone could ever want, right? Great schools, great opportunities. My parents loved me. And, some of these things that they struggle with, I'm thinking of several people right now in my mind where, there is a longing, a missing, a sense of, maybe in current life, it's like almost like a deprivation, like they feel like, and I would call it maybe an unmet need, right? In childhood. And it could have been even that nurturing. So I think about, when I talk about, well, how were mom and dad, and even though they were great and wonderful and did everything and love them, they might have lacked that warmth and that ability to nurture a child who might have needed that. Like all of our kids are different. I notice, some kids might need more holding and nurturing, and other, you can see this even as babies. I love reflecting on my niece's two kids and how her one just loves to snuggle when you're putting her to sleep and rock her and cuddle. And the baby is like, literally will look at the crib and be like, I'm good. Just lay me down. And it is wild because I'll want to snuggle her. And she's like looking at the crib like, okay, I'm ready. And she can just like go in her bed and roll around a little, and is so just temperamentally. And I think that's really cool to know that here are two kids entirely different. And so when you have one mom who's the same, this isn't like, and I'm not blaming moms, right? Because I myself, I recognize, like, I want to cuddle a baby, right? And if you try to cuddle a baby that doesn't want to be cuddled, okay, what's going to happen? They're going to resist. They're going to push away. They're going to send you signals. Anyway, I could go off on so many different tangents, but when I'm thinking about that sense of loss of that primary feeling of being soothed in some way, okay, and how food is soothing, how that, and I think that they don't know because they were babies.
100%. And I think, it would be really fascinating if we could all go back in like a time machine and see our clients as infants. I mean, that would, if I could have a dream, that would be a dream. Because I think, first of all, I think everything would be so clear.
It would all make sense.
So many ways. And, if we think about our, one of our very most immediate needs as a newborn is food, right? So, and milk, which is sweet, number one. It's sweet for a reason. And that's all designed that way. And it's pleasant, it's enjoyable. It keeps us coming back for more on a regular basis. And so if there is a situation where, whether food is used as the sole comfort, every single time a baby cries, they get a bottle. And that bottle is continued to, when they're, I've had clients who've had bottles handed to them, things that are not milk in them in their crib to soothe repeatedly. So it's using food as the primary soother, or in a situation where maybe it's not readily available or consistently available, a child, cries and then it's not responded. They cry because they're hungry and they're not responded to, or they are responded to in a negative way. All of that child will feel it. They're communicating and they're being ignored or worse. And so those immediate those early and immediate experiences actually shape that foundation. And so, if someone is, trying to figure out the right way to communicate or the perfect way to get their needs met, all of those patterns get formed over time. And so someone could be then using food in a way to stuff emotions, or not eating in a way to numb, or looking for the perfect food to soothe or to whatever. So it sort of unfolds in limitless different directions.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I do actually, when I'm with clients, imagine and connect with that like really young part of them. Okay. And I can sort of imagine and sense that. I was sitting with someone this week and I could see their behavior as a manifestation of a longing and a desire of this trying to get this childhood unmet need met in adulthood, through kind of maladaptive, right? It's not bad. It's not, but it becomes, and there's a difference between judging something as bad versus maladaptive. Okay. It's like eating the ice cream, right? Soothing versus eating a gallon of ice cream, because there's never enough, right? And that's the maladaptive use. Like Lizzie said, like if you're kind of tuned out, semi-dissociative, while you're engaging in it, it's like, because it's bad, you're not actually soothing, okay? And you're trying to soothe an unmet need that's deeper than just that momentary thing. And I think that's that kind of working with awareness, okay? Awareness and removing I love when you say this just like really neutralizing food. That this whole, it's so hard nowadays.
Oh,
I mean, I don't feel affected by it. I mean, I feel very, rock solid, but I feel like that's partly because of the intense work and training in my environment, my home environment, that I'm not impacted by it. I'm more infuriated by how vulnerable people are in the world, to hearing all of this like eat this, don't eat that. This is good. This is bad. It's like literally the opposite of what you're teaching. So I can only imagine how you must feel.
It's exhausting. And it, just kind of like you said, when you think the volume can't get louder, it does. And, I think we're fortunate to do the work that we do and surround ourselves with the people we surround ourselves with, because we are insulated in some ways. And then when we go out there, it's like, what in the world? Wow. It feels like it's just, yeah, it's a tough world out there. So.
It's interesting because we kind of look at, we see everything, right? Our clients, we're always looking at whether they come in with disordered eating or, some kind of focus on healing that relationship, or they're just coming in for other reasons. I know I'm always looking at kind of their relationship with food, and how they're eating, because it really gives us a sense of even just how well they're actually going to be doing emotionally, right? Forget about like if they're not eating enough. Working with someone this week who's taking a GLP-1 and not at all eating enough. And they have a very serious mood disorder, and I cannot drill it into their head how important eating consistently and balanced meals are to supporting their mood regulation and having their whole system work. And it's not anti-GLP-1. It's literally, if you do that, you have to attend to your nutritional needs. You have to.
Absolutely. It's the body doesn't stop needing nutrients just because you have a harder time picking up on your signals. And it's like my overused analogy of just because the gas light isn't coming on doesn't mean you're not going to run out of gas. And it's such a good example and a good reminder of how you can have both those physiological needs for food and you can have emotional things happening, and they both actually need food, and also to effectively deal with the emotions, you have to have enough food. So, a lot of times I will use the example of, let's say someone has, this is their baseline anxiety, right? And now they're going 5, 6, 7 hours without food, and their anxiety is getting higher. And they're trying to figure out why their skills aren't working. Why can't they just, breathe and calm down and all the things they've learned until they eat and give their brain fuel and physiologically tell their body that they're taking care of them. They're not going to be able to use those skills. So eating is the first skill. It brings that down. And so that's part of where, listening again to cravings can come in. Your body is telling you something. Oh, we need to eat first. Now, what are the other things we know help when I'm anxious? Okay, So it isn't, it's either biological, it's either emotional, it can be very intertwined, and slowing down to stay curious. You're not going to find one answer. Okay, well, that maybe helped a little bit. And now what? What is my need? What do I need?
Yeah, there's so many layers to this process and the unfolding of it that, if someone's hearing all this for the first time, it could feel like a lot, like a whole big quiz, I see of like, oh, if this happens and then that, and I go there. And yes, there is so much to uncover. But I really think that both of you have a way of meeting people where they're at and going at their pace. And Christie, I'd love for you to share, how you work with people or what you have coming up of like, where can people begin? So they can begin at their own pace or where they're at in their life and on their journey.
Well, I think in general, the way I begin is just really where people are. if people come to me and they're like, tell me what to do. Um, and they may really think they want that, but I can't. I can't tell them what to do, but I can get curious with them and help them figure out where a starting point is. And a lot of times the starting point is just becoming aware. It really is starting to notice, wow, these are certain patterns that I'm noticing, and beginning, more than anything, the first thing I help people begin to form in their brain is the fact that they actually have permission to eat, because that is one of the things that has gotten so unhinged. And we really have this sense of somehow eating is okay, but only if, okay in certain circumstances. Okay, you're a human, you're alive, your heart is beating, therefore you need food. Period, end of story. We have to start with that. So, that curiosity, being aware of patterns, and then working on taking those shoulds out of their conversation so they can get more information. And so, in general, that's where I start with people. And that can also feel scary because it's not rigid. And, where that's a lot of times what people expect when they're coming to a dietitian. They're expecting a plan, they're expecting, a rigid checklist of some kind. That doesn't mean that that's what they actually think they need, but that's what they're expecting. And they don't really know what they
I know, because I've worked very closely with Christie for years, and my clients who get frustrated are often because they want an answer and to fix it without actually having to feel the feelings that arise. And so this sort of recognizing this, and even having to be in their body, because being aware, intuitive eating means connecting with these signals. And some of them are emotionally, there's almost like, I work with early childhood trauma, and food is almost always some aspect of it. Okay. Whether, things happened at the dinner table, or there was neglect and not enough food, or food was used in a different way. There's just so much to how food plays out in early childhood, even in a home with somebody might not consider themselves having trauma, but how food, you can notice how people use food with kids. And I think about that as, it's emotional. I mean, kids have deep emotion, and they might not even have memory of that, but it's hard for clients. And I really appreciate this about you, Christie, because you really insist that your clients actually are in therapy, because there is really, both are needed. And I think that you and I, when we're working together with a client, how much, and not just you and I, but you and whatever therapist is happening to work with your client, that it's really that, it's both of you kind of coming at that and doing separate but similar and connected, which is why I think clients will be like, oh my God, Christie just said something like that. But that doesn't mean that they don't need me or they don't need you. In fact, hearing it and connecting, I feel like it really makes a difference. And I really appreciate that about you. And one of the things that I feel like you do is you recognize the relational aspect as well. That this isn't just, let me give you this meal plan, eat this and everything's going to be fine. That you, when you're in the room with someone, when you're working with someone, you are truly with them. You're really understanding their unique, kind of needs and emotions, and their personality, their habits, their desires. It's like you know them as a whole person. Okay. And that is super important, because there is a whole relational part of this.
It's important, and it's, I didn't always practice this way. this isn't how I was trained. As dietitians, we're not trained this way. We're trained to teach people. We're trained to tell people. We're trained to calculate. We're trained to do. So I did try all that and it didn't work. It didn't work. And it felt horrible for me. It felt horrible for the client. Because it's not about telling or teaching or doing. It is about being. And it starts with being in the room. It starts with just feeling like, for my clients that they can actually say something and know I'm not judging them. I've heard pretty much everything, right? We hear a lot, and to have there be a safe place where clients can actually, food is, clients cry in my session all the time because food is such an emotional thing.
So much.
So, and Lizzie, you were asking what I have coming up. So I have a Decode Your Cravings masterclass, which is free. It's online. August 24th, which is a Monday, 5 p.m., 5 to 6:15, free, online, really kind of this topic that we talked about today, but in more depth, and really giving you, a few more tools to work on. And then my next online intuitive nourishment course, which is based, off intuitive eating, which I'm an certified intuitive eating counselor. It's an 8-week online course beginning the last Monday of September, hour and 15 minutes each week. And it's full of just so much good info and, some homework and participation in this really safe online group, and it's just kind of my baby. So
Yay. Oh, we're so excited to have you, be sharing that and diving deeper into this topic. I think our community is really gonna have a lot of aha moments by learning from you and anyone that attends. And we'll definitely put all that info in the show notes for anyone to check out. And thank you so much for taking your time and exploring this.
It's always so fun talking to you guys.
I'm really hoping people will share this podcast and share this opportunity that you just offered for them to come to the masterclass with people who themselves might need to sort of heal their relationship with food and to build this to rebuild because babies are born with this intuitive, this knowing and this, these signals. But they're somehow lost along the way. And so that reconnection, and also for like maybe new moms and stuff like that, because I feel like, there's no greater place to heal your own relationship and to do it while you're raising your kids, because you are influencing their relationship with food. So I hope that listeners will share, because Christie, you are just a treasure chest of wisdom and inspiration in my life every day. And I feel like everybody could really get a chance to gain some of these nuggets that you have to offer. Okay. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, guys. This is great.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If it spoke to you, it'll probably speak to someone you love too. Share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review to help spread the message it's never too late to heal.